Greetings and welcome back to room 303 and our chats with Emily as we're calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson contained in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 135, often one of the more anthologized of Emily's poetry. Water is taught by thirst. Now, many will read this as another theodicy, as we have commented in our set of introductory comments. That is to say, why must there be pain and suffering in this world? Emily's going to argue, no, it is simply because of thirst that we understand the value of water. This obviously takes us back to poem 21. You'll remember that we've already covered, we lose because we win. And then, of course, in poem 67, success is counted sweetest by those who dare succeed. To comprehend a nectar requires sorest need. Now, our assumptions is that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side. Again, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already been introduced to our set of introductory comments. So remember about our big five, as we said. We're always asking, what does this text say about epistemology and what one can know, especially the valuables position, ontology and who we are, psychology, the study of the individual mind, sociology, the study of the collective mind, and then finally, the last of our big five, that word I used a second ago, theodicy, the question of why must there be pain and suffering in this world, and what is its value? I think we're going to see some of this here. Now, I should point out that in this poem, we're going to hear the word mold, and an M-O-L-D, and it actually means photograph. When Thomas Higginson, who we've commented on already, asked Emily to send a photograph of herself, she had to admit she didn't have a photograph of herself. And in fact, as we've said already, there's only one image that we have today of Emily Dickinson. And this, we're told, was concerning to the father, quote, who often alarms father. In letter 268, this is the way she says it. He says death might occur, and he has moles of all the rest, but no mole of me, end quote. So when we meet this word, that's what we're talking about, photograph there. Now, life for Emily is about contradictions. Think about, for example, the yin-yang symbol, as we've commented on it, and especially we did the poetry of Blake, Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience, and the like. And Emily is always trying to educate, first herself and then, of course, us as well. And so as we play this game, we're going to pay attention to that as well. Let's enjoy it. Water is taught by thirst, land by the ocean's past, transport by throw, peace by its battles told, love by memorial mold, birds by the snow. Now, I love that she begins with water and ends with birds, or you could argue she begins with water and land and ends with birds, and then in there in between, notice, this is a listing poem, yes, did you see this? So you've got, notice, water, land, transport, we'll have to comment on that word, peace, love, and then birds. And it's typical Emily that she would create a list that would start with water and land, and then all of a sudden jump to transport, peace, and love, and then all of a sudden be back with birds, at the end of it. So this is going to be strange. Now, in its most simple study of this poem, obviously we're talking about contrasts, right? So notice, we'll begin with the idea that water is taught by thirst. Now, the use of the word taught, just like the use of the word transport, is Emily's capacity to play with language. And I think, guys, she's always having fun when she's playing this game. Think of it. You really don't understand. To comprehend a nectar requires sorest need, as we said already, from a poem that we've already studied at poem 67, right? Water is taught by thirst. In other words, you really don't understand what it's like to be thirsty until you appreciate the lack of water. And then once you don't have water, then you'll get it. Land, of course, is all about the idea of that meeting between the ocean and the land, right? In other words, there has to be some connection between the two. And then she uses the word transport. Now, my Emily group pointed this out to me, and I love this, that instead of using the word pleasure, which you would expect with the word throw, by the way, you can go back to poem 71 when she uses the word throw this way, transport, pleasure, being taken somewhere, as opposed to suffering. And of course, it's the third line that can turn this quickly towards the theodicy enterprise, right? And then we've got peace and love. Think about it. Peace is defined by battlefields and the stories of war. And love by memorial mold. And again, this is the idea of a photograph. In other words, We think about love and the person who we have lost and the picture that we're looking at them, and we think how much more we think about them because we have the image of them. But of course, it's the loss of that individual that makes this photograph so precious to us. And then finally, inexplicably, we're to birds. And of course, birds will leave in the winter time, right? In other words, we don't really appreciate birds and their singing and the like until winter comes. And then, well, they're absent, right? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, what's going on? We think, of course, of Hardy's Darkling Thrush. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net over that poem. Remember, he's out walking at the end of the year in the cold, and all of a sudden he sees this bird, and he's like, why is this bird singing? And it gave him, he thinks, maybe some reason for hope. Now, what is it exactly that Emily is trying to teach in a poem like this? Well, I think that our argument, and this is about education, is that we learn to appreciate whatever it is we learn to appreciate through opposites, through the deprivation maybe of not having the things that we long for. We learn to value those things. As they say, you don't understand what you have until it is missing or gone. We take things for granted. At 2B, I love the way that she lists this, and I love the ordering that she plays with, and I love that she ends with birds. Did you notice the end rhyme? Just take a look at it one more time at the last. So notice you've got thirst, past, throw, told, mold, snow. It's a fun way for her to play around with rhyme, slant rhyme, and the like. At 3A, well, do you remember in poem in our study of Milton's Paradise Lost, that the opening lines, what is the goal? To justify the ways of God to man. But you'll remember that Satan will say at the conclusion of book 1, we've given full lectures of Paradise Lost at learnstrong.net. Do you remember that he said the mind is its own place, right? He says this, and it can create a hell of heaven, a heaven of hell. In other words, everything is somehow juxtaposed in the mind as we're trying to compare. And when we hit poem 313, we're going to hear it this way. Defeat whets victory, they say. The reefs in old Gethsemane endear the coast beyond. 'Tis beggars banquets can define. 'Tis parching vitalizes wine. Faith bleats to understand. Finally, at 3B, how are you going to own a poem like this? Well, what was a time in your life when you learned this idea through loss and through not having? It was in the process of losing or not having that you began to appreciate, whoa, when I don't have something, that's when I really enjoy that thing that I now appreciate so much more. It is in that distinction between the contradictions, if you will, so that we love these songs of birds more because we don't have them in the winter when the snow arrives. I hope that Emily is challenging you intellectually. Thank you.